stub. A hunk of burning stub. A hunk of burning stub. A hunk of burning stub.
Welcome to the Beau Show, the home of faith, family, and freedom. What do you think is more important? Giving more money to Ukraine or helping those out in Ohio where a train derailed and created a toxic air plume? That will be today's topic. Now, I think I'm asking a very rhetorical question. It should seem obvious that Ohio, an American state, should take priority. Sadly, this has not been the top priority for the Biden administration. In recent days, we have seen Chinese balloons, UFOs being shot down over American skies, and now a series of train derailments that have led to major environmental disasters, far more damaging than the Exxon Valdez oil spill, which environmentalists went crazy over. This event happened on U.S. soil, though, on the Ohio-Pennsylvania border, in a town called East Palestine, a town of about 5,000 people. The train carried the dangerous chemical vinyl chloride. So, crews created an intentional toxic burn of phosgene and hydrogen chloride so that it might prevent an even bigger explosion. Phosgene is a highly toxic gas that can cause vomiting and breathing trouble, and was used as a weapon in the First World War. Now, while no one died in this incident, thankfully, it has been a wake-up call. If this train had derailed just a few miles east, the entire Pittsburgh area would have been affected by this toxic explosion. 25 million Americans live in oil train blast zones. Amtrak engineer Ron Kamenkow believes a self-regulating industry, little oversight, and a poorly staffed operation for this kind of derailment. He stated, quote, "If something is not done, then it's going to get worse, and the next derailment could be cataclysmic," unquote. According to the U.S. Department of Transportation, about 4.5 million tons of toxic chemicals are shipped by rail each year, and an average of 12,000 rail cars carrying hazardous materials pass through cities and towns each day. The Pittsburgh area alone has seen 8 derailments in just the last 5 years. A broken axle on a train car is what is believed to be the reason for the recent crash in East Palestine. Liquid natural gas is another volatile freight that is transported by rail throughout this country, and a train of LNG could contain enough energy as the Hiroshima bomb. Railroad Workers United blames the recent crash on a lack of proper inspection due to the train being rushed and hastily inspected. Rail crews have been slashed immensely, leaving far less manpower to the job of an ever-increasing volume of rail freight. And clearly, we are seeing the results of this shortage and lack of oversight. Currently on Netflix, there's a film called White Noise, starring Adam Driver, which, I have to be honest, is one of the worst movies I have ever watched. Please, don't waste your time. But the plot is that Driver's family tries to escape a train derailment that has a toxic explosion that can cause a myriad of symptoms. Even Hollywood, in this horrible movie that should have never been made, has the ability to reflect reality in a premonition sort of way. You also may remember the recent satirical Netflix film Don't Look Up with Leo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence, another apocalyptic piece that hints at inaction over climate change. This was also a terrible movie. But it's always interesting to me how liberals want to point at climate change, especially anthropogenic climate change regarding fossil fuels, when in reality, something like a simple vinyl chloride explosion from a train derailment is far more common and disastrous. We don't need hockey puck graphs from Al Gore and faulty data to guess at train derailments and poor staffing. We have cold, hard facts on that. Unlike climate, it's mostly controllable. And the New York Post wrote a story recently on how animals near the evacuation site are falling ill and dying. Taylor Holzer, who runs a nearby dairy farm, has noticed sudden changes in the health of animals, from coughing to death, even as officials said the air was safe. Vinyl chloride, in addition to causing nausea, vomiting, and breathing problems, can also cause liver cancer and cancer of other organs. Officials did this burn-off to prevent a massive explosion. So while they may have mitigated one disaster, they created another one with this intentional burn-off. In some ways, I suppose you could call it directed evolution, like the Pfizer exec confessed in the Undercover Project Veritas video. Pete Buttigieg, aka good old Mayor Pete, is Biden's appointee for Secretary of Transportation, an area in which he has zero experience. But he got the gig because he is gay. It was a diversity and equity pick. This is a common theme in the administration, where the most diverse, but not necessarily the most qualified, get positions of great authority. Buttigieg has overseen the nation's major supply chain disruptions and port failures, as well as a record number of major airport groundings and air traffic confusion and delays. We saw this with Southwest and at LAX, but they haven't been the only ones. It seems that safety in the skies has gotten quite lax. So these railroads are Pete's territory, but he doesn't know how to fix it. He was silent on the whole derailment for days. When he finally did emerge, here's what he said.
It's had its challenges.
Right.
I mean, if you look at what the American transportation systems have faced in the last 2 or 3 years, partly because of the pandemic, we've faced issues from container shipping to airline cancellations. Mm-hmm. Now we got balloons.
That's right.
It's had its challenges.
Right.
I mean, if you look at what the American transportation systems have faced in the last 2 or 3 years, partly because of the pandemic, we've faced issues from container shipping to airline cancellations. Mm-hmm. Now we got balloons.
That's right.
Buttigieg has faced criticism from both Republicans and Democrats over this response, making it one issue that both parties can actually agree on. He also made a quip about a lack of racial equity in construction jobs when he stated, quote, "We have heard way too many stories from generations past of infrastructure where you got a neighborhood, often a neighborhood of color, that finally sees the project come to them. But everyone in the hard hats on that project doing the good paying jobs don't look like they came from anywhere near the neighborhood," unquote. What Buttigieg is suggesting, a racial quota for hiring, might be unconstitutional, according to Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. So no mention of East Palestine, but plenty of jokes about balloons and racial inequality in infrastructure jobs. This should come as no surprise, though, since Pete himself was an equity and inclusion pick for his position. You may remember that in the recent midterms, Ohio elected new Senator J.D. Vance. On February 16th, Vance made a video on the ground in East Palestine to show the effects of the chemical explosion. Watch.
Hey guys, so I'm here at Leslie Run, and there's dead worms and dead fish all throughout this water. So, something I just discovered is that if you scrape the creek bed, it's like chemical is coming out of the ground. Can you come here and let me just show this to people. I don't know if you're going to see this on the camera, but watch this. Just see that chemical pop out of the creek. This is disgusting. And the fact that we have not cleaned up the train crash, the fact that these chemicals are still seeping in the ground is an insult to the people who live in East Palestine. Do not forget these people. We've got to keep applying pressure. That's how we're going to fix this problem. Thank you.
Vance also did a presser in which he talked about the quality of water in the East Palestine area.
You know, it reminds me of that scene in Erin Brockovich where she puts the water in front of them and says, if you think it's clean, we brought this water from the community that was affected. Look, I think that if the EPA administrator wants to stand here and tell people that the tap water is safe, by all means, they should be willing to drink it.
Are you?
No, I told Tom, I think that if I was living here, I would drink the bottled water for now. Better safe than sorry, especially since it's being provided for free. That's the guidance I would give. But again, residents are going to make their own decisions on this. But my honest personal advice is I'd be drinking the bottled water right now.
The bottom line is that the EPA has not taken a drink of that water, so they have no idea. Last week, another train derailed in Belleville, Michigan, not too far from the Detroit Metropolitan Airport. One of those cars had liquid chlorine in it, but it was not part of the biggest impact in that derailment. It demonstrates that more hazardous materials, however, could potentially have become an environmental threat, just like East Palestine. Ohio Governor Mike DeWine asked for FEMA aid from the federal government, but was denied. FEMA denied an aid request from the governor, prompting all 17 members of Ohio's congressional delegation to write letters demanding an answer as to why Governor DeWine's aid request was denied. Now, seeing both the people's need and a void in leadership, former President Donald Trump announced that he would be visiting East Palestine this week.
Keep watching at epochtv.com/The Beau Show.